Hello and welcome to Executive Insights in association with KPMG. My name is Niall Savage. I'm the Head of Retail and Manufacturing in KPMG. I'm delighted to be joined today with the CEO and co-founder of Buymie, Mr. Devan Hughes. Devan, welcome aboard.
Thanks for having me on.
What is the key business strategy that culminated in this nomination?
That's a tough question, being very honest. And there probably isn't just one, to be fair. I think the way I approach business, the way I approach Buymie, comes in a couple of different manners, and it really depends on what the challenge is that I'm facing. If I think of everything that we've experienced in the last 18 months, the spotlight swung around on our company quite fast and was quite hot, because we did ultimately, we were seen as an essential service, and the level of demand, we became the #1 food and drink app in the country for most of last year, ahead of billion-dollar companies like Just Eat, Deliveroo, and Uber, with a fraction of the resources. We're 60% full-time, right? And so the level of demand we saw coming in was quite significant, and we felt a significant responsibility to rise to the occasion and expand as quickly as possible. And so I think for us, I talked about a culture of measurement a lot. We had just vast amounts of data coming in, telling us where the demand was, telling us where the challenges are, or perhaps where some of the bottlenecks in our systems were emerging. And the reason we were able to react so quickly and continue to scale the business, like we grew 500% in the space of 12 months, and we were already a reasonably big business at the end of at the end of 2019. So that was all around that measurement, that access to data and level of visibility. The other key element is a level of trust, because not only were we an essential service, but we actually launched one of the largest grocery retailers in the country, done stores online for the very first time at a national level. The only way we were able to do that was because we operate in a very transparent way. We were constantly in comms with the industry, and so that comes around knowledge sharing, and that's another strategy that I'm a firm believer in. Whether that's within your own organization or externally, it's sharing the knowledge that you're picking up and learning and pushing it out to others, because a rising tide carries all ships. And we're certainly trying to support this industry, and particularly help brick and mortar retailers win in this brand new landscape, in a very challenging environment where they haven't been able to make money ever. And so at this stage, I don't think there's any way to do that without being incredibly open and transparent and supportive. So I would say if there's anything I would run it down to those two things. Culture of measurement. Make sure you're looking closely at what you're doing, and be open and honest about how you're doing it.
You've been very open in the fact that you've had 4 less than successful ventures prior to Buymie. What was different this time? What was the secret sauce? What do you think was the winning factor?
Experience. I mean, hands down. I mean, yeah, you're right. I often talk about the fact that Buymie is my 5th business, and I've had 4 that haven't worked out previously. I think, for me, entrepreneurship or starting a business, whatever way you want to call it, it's a muscle. It's muscle memory. And the more you do it, the more frequently you do it, it's repetition, the faster and better you become. And so for me, I think that the core difference between how I approached Buymie versus how I approached previous businesses was just pure preparation. Like I was very deliberate and methodical in starting Buymie. I spent probably about 6 to 8 months of desktop research before I started any practical work. I left my job. I got another job for a year to prep and learn about technology and the type of platform I wanted to build. And then I did a 12 months of validating, surveying customers on the street and shopping centers on the road, before we started building prototypes. And so all of that, I think all of that work that went in prior meant that I de-risked a huge amount of it before I ever spent a penny or lifted a finger. It was that preparation, I think, makes a huge difference, because you have a much clearer view of where you're headed.
COVID happened, economic restrictions happened. You were at the forefront from day one. To be fair to you, you mentioned a white paper and everything else that you drafted. Was the business ready for it? Were you waiting for this moment, or was it sort of, right, all hands on deck, this is coming 2 years quicker than we thought?
Yeah, we were very it was right place, right time, right product, right team. It's probably the best way I could describe it. Buymie became very well-known brand over the last 18 months. We recently did some brand testing, and I'm so surprised. 40% of the Irish population have heard of Buymie, which to me is mind-blowing. From where we've come from. But the reality is that we launched in 2016. I quit my job. I became our first personal shopper in 2016. First 2 years, I did about 1,800 grocery orders myself, really kind of understanding the back end of the business and how it all needed to come together. But we spent 2019 scaling. We signed our first enterprise grocery retail partner with Lidl, the largest grocer in Europe, owned by the Schwartz Group. And we launched them in September 2018. And we grew the business 350% that year. Wow. So we had spent that entire year building scalability into the infrastructure, into the systems. And then when COVID hit, we were in a position where we not only had proven out the capability of the platform and the demand from consumers, but we were just right at that perfect moment to unlock the capital to be able to fund the business. So, when COVID hit, we realized that our entire financial plan and commercial plan for the year was just blown out of the water. Yeah. We totally had to rethink the type of scale and size the business was going to be within the next 12 months. And we were very fortunate to have some really incredible investors, like already good relationships having been built. And we raised 8.2 million, which was led by Wheatsheaf, which is the largest food sustainability and supply chain investor in the UK. They're the venture arm of the Duke of Westminster's Grosvenor estate. Nice. As well as great Irish VC firms like ACT Ventures and Sure Valley Ventures. They stepped in, they helped us raise 8.2 million that year. And that gave us the ability to really lean into the pandemic and become the essential service that we did.
Capitalize the opportunity. Was it difficult as a startup? I mean, you're instantly having to become a trusted partner of some of the oldest and largest organizations who wouldn't be renowned for, partnering, these large multiples. How was it? Was it hard to be taken, at a peer from day one to be delivering for them? The trust.
I think that you've hit the nail on the head now. It's all about trust.
Yeah.
These brands and people, to your point, they have a reputation for not opening up, not partnering. But if you think about it, I mean, food supply is probably the second most important infrastructural component to our society after energy.
Yeah.
And so disrupting food supply or impacting food supply is a serious game. And the grocers take this business seriously because it is. And they're not going to hand over that customer relationship and that responsibility lightly. And so I think one of the biggest things that we've certainly focused on as a business is creating trust with the industry. And that's built on a level of transparency. We create transparency. We share a huge amount of insight and data with both partners and non-partners. And this is the most important thing. I'm regularly in comms with retailers we're not even working with, sharing with them what we're learning, what we're seeing in the market. That's how you start to build a culture of trust between stakeholders. And I think that was a big part of, again, when this crisis happened, I was in a position to be able to reach out to every major grocer to see who could we support and help in this moment in time. And I think that, again, it was right, just happened to be right place, right time. And the work that we had done from 2016 all played a part in that.
Fantastic. I've heard you talk a bit about mindset, a little bit about getting the right people, trusting, being an executor. How much of yourself is reflected in your organization, and how hard is it to impose that and sort of be yourself and get that in?
It's a great question. I certainly wouldn't use the word impose, and partly because the way I've always looked at Buymie is that it is this collaborative creature, and every time I bring in a new member of the team at whatever level, they make their impact, they leave their mark on the business, and they have an impact on the culture that we're creating. I've been very fortunate. One of the things that I'm most excited about this business is the quality of the people that I've somehow managed to convince to come on this journey with me. And sometimes I often have to sit back and think, Jesus, like how did I manage to get these people on board? Because this was never a clear path. It was never obvious. Grocery delivery was a very boring place up until 18 months ago, and so it was. That part has been a really important issue. If I was to say the one thing that I've probably driven into the business and really focused on is probably twofold. It's a culture of measurement. Measurement is a critical part of how I approach business. Looking at KPIs, understanding the entire organization, being able to see when you make a change here, what impact that has, cause and effect, where that might impact across the organization. So I think driving that culture of transparency has been very important. So whenever anyone comes into the business, they really need to understand their KPIs for their department so that they can drive their part of the business as effectively as they can. And the second one would be, for me, transparency.
Sure.
And for me at the very beginning, you have to understand, you're trying to hire top talent. You have to be incredibly open. In fact, when you're interviewing, my first employee was Kevin Hughes, no relation. Kevin was employee number 3 for Airbnb Europe, and they hired him after their Series A. He helped scale Airbnb out of 3 employees in an apartment to 500 in their HQ, and then went and did a stint with Google. Top brass talent. But the reality is when he joined us, he took a 50% pay cut to come and work for the business. He wasn't interviewing to come and work for me. I was interviewing for him to come and work for me, right? So like that's the way I look at it. And the way I approach that is that I not only share the full story of the business, the warts and all, but I also share all of the company information. Like we operate very transparent. We do a company meeting, a town hall every month. We have 60 full-time employees now across 3 offices in 3 countries. And we do a town hall every month. And we talk about our revenue, our profitability. We open up the company information so that everyone understands what we're trying to achieve, aligns everybody, and puts all the wood behind one arrow.
Yeah, no, it's fantastic. You've just opened up in Limerick and Galway. How's it going? What's next?
It's gone great actually. The thing that has probably surprised us the most is how fast we're able to get a market working. You know, Dublin is our most mature market, and we've been there for nearly 6 years. And the last 18, 24 months have been all about expansion for us. We launched our first international market, UK, with Bristol. We launched Cork. Cork was actually bigger news than anything. We got picked up in Fortune magazine when we launched Cork. And that's gone incredibly well. And now we're so excited because actually Galway and Limerick, our 4th and 5th markets, was the first time that we launched 2 markets at the exact same time. And for us, that's a step change in scale. You know, how we, and there's probably about 42 viable markets across just Ireland and the UK that we want to launch in, 15 really high priority ones. And so for us, this was a real test. Could we successfully launch 2 markets at the exact same time and get a great result? And I'm really excited that we did. And part of our success is down to the great support that we get from our retail partners. Right. You know, we work really closely with both Dunnes Stores and Lidl. And when we launch in markets, we're launching with that collaboration, and we're very much aligned with them in terms of how we bring their offering to their customers in those markets. So it's gone incredibly well. The uptake has been great, and Ireland is one of the fastest growing markets for grocery e-commerce in the world. After the pandemic, a third of people will now say that they will do grocery shopping this year online in some way, shape, or form. It's par for the course now, and it's going to be a part of the share of stomach.
Yeah, we were slow enough to get there though, weren't we?
We were. In fact, you know, Ireland and UK are the most mature e-commerce grocery markets. We've had grocery e-commerce for the best part of a quarter of a century, 25 years now. But what brought me to this market was in 2014, over a pint of Guinness in Dublin pub, where all great ideas come from. Someone said to me, Devan, do you know that the online grocery market is worth £9 billion, Ireland, UK combined, total spend, and it loses £300 million a year? So that was the aggregate losses of all the retailers trying to run this model. And when I looked at really, like, my background is not technology or grocery, it's energy. I worked in the electricity markets. And when I looked at this sector, one, I saw a commodity market. Grocery is a commodity. But what I saw was 10 to 12 distribution networks all trying to do the same thing. I mean, if we did that with electricity and gas, it would be prohibitively expensive for us to have heat and power in our homes and businesses. And so for me, that exciting moment of kind of a light switch is, well, if we actually brought some of the best practices of the commodity markets to grocery, we could create something really compelling. But most importantly, reduce the CapEx cost for grocers to be able to get online. Because up until now, and you questioned if we've been slow to get off the ground, I don't put that down to consumer demand, because the fastest growing channel for online, for grocery, FMCG for the last 10 years has been online. So consumer demand has been there, but the friction and the bottleneck has occurred in the infrastructure cost. It cost somewhere in the region of £400 million to build a customer fulfillment center, CFC, which is what Ocado's and Tesco's would call it. What we do is we build technology around the existing store estates and the existing retail infrastructure, and we sweat those assets harder. And that's where the efficiency comes from. So we've been able to become the largest same-day grocery e-commerce platform in Ireland, with over 500 personal shoppers, with a fraction, a decimal point, a round-off error of the capital that has gone into these, more intensive and legacy systems. So I think what's happening right now is we're starting to see technology catch up with consumer demand, and now it's just taken off. And I think I'm thrilled that we've been a participant and a support for that.
That's fantastic. Yeah, that problematic last mile. Your entrepreneur of the year, business person of the year for May 2021, very high profile person. What advice would you give to someone 10 years behind you on your journey, seeking to change the world, or even their locality?
It's a great question, Niall. I think if I was to speak from my own personal experience, be a missionary, not a mercenary, is probably the highlight takeaway, the tagline. And what I mean by that is be less focused on the material result of success in entrepreneurship and starting a business, because that doesn't really get you very far, because it's not authentic. Do something that you're passionate about, find something that excites you, and really lean into that. Become an expert and become a champion for that mission, because it's so much more compelling and people want to be a part of that. And I think that, again, I've become utterly obsessed with the problems that we're trying to solve in the market. And I love that we're having the impact that we are. But I think a big part of the reason why people want to come and work with us is because they feel that sense of mission. It certainly has for my C team, executive team who've come to join us, and I'd like to think for the rest of the business. But for anyone starting out on that journey, I think that level of authentic passion is going to push you through all the difficult times. It's going to attract people around you, be that members of your team or investors, and it just makes for a hell of a lot more fun. So I would tell people just to try and do that, because I know in my early years I was far more focused on the material gain of entrepreneurship and building a business, and I wasn't really thinking about the reason why, the real nitty gritty part of why I was doing what I was doing. I was just thinking about the future and what I would get out of it. And yeah, it certainly didn't yield results for me. So that would be probably my best piece of advice. For anyone in the early stage. Obviously, advice can change depending on where you are in your stage, but for early people starting out, that would be my number one.
Listen, you've been very generous with your time, Devan. Really fantastic listening to your words of wisdom. And to everyone else, thank you for joining us today on Executive Insights in association with KPMG. There's plenty more content on businessandfinance.com that's similar. Anything else you want to add, Devan?
No, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. And look, I'll be certainly tuning in for the next edition.